4,000 years before the first toxicology lab existed, scribes were writing down which plants would hurt you. Not in vague terms, not in metaphor, in specific, documented, use with extreme caution language that got copied from scroll to scroll across centuries. In Hebrew, in Greek, in Latin, until it landed in the text that roughly 2 billion people consider sacred. And then something strange happened. When scientists finally built the instruments to measure what those plants actually contain, the alkaloids, the glycosides, the compounds that disrupt heart rhythm and nerve function and liver metabolism, they confirmed it, plant by plant, compound by compound. The warnings that scripture and ancient botanical texts recorded weren't folklore, they were accurate. I'm going through 10 of them today. Plants the biblical record flagged, plants that appeared in ancient medical warnings, plants that the traditional world handled with specific caution, and that modern toxicology has since confirmed are genuinely dangerous, often in exactly the way the ancient record described. Stay for number 4, because that one is growing in suburban gardens right now. It's been associated with one of the most dramatic cases of accidental poisoning in documented European history, and the biblical name for it translates directly to bitter death. And stay for number 1, because number 1 is the plant that appears more times in Scripture as a warning symbol than any other. And what the compound inside it actually does to the human heart is something cardiologists are still mapping today. 10 plants, confirmed by science, warned about first by Scripture. Let's go through all of them. This channel covers what the gardening world and the wellness industry leave out, the danger half. The warning that was always in the record and never made it to the label. If you're someone who takes what grows seriously, in your garden, in your kitchen, in the products you buy, and you want the full picture, not just the marketable half, you're in the right place. I read the other side of the botanical record, so you don't have to go looking for it alone. Subscribe before we get into this list. The people here share the information that gets left off the care card and the supplement label. Hit the button and come into the community. You're going to want to send some of what's coming to people you know. Number 10. Hemlock, Conium maculatum. Most people know hemlock as the plant that killed Socrates. What most people don't know is that it's a common roadside plant across North America and Europe. It looks almost identical to several edible plants, including wild carrot and parsley, and the ancient Hebrew record used it as a direct symbol of divine judgment, not decoratively, but because its effects were specific and well understood. The book of Hosea references a plant producing bitter, poisonous fruit. The Hebrew word used, rosh, appears across multiple books as a symbol of deadly consequence. Several biblical scholars have identified hemlock as the most likely candidate for at least some of these references, given its documented presence in the ancient Near East and its culturally known lethality. Modern toxicology confirmed what ancient observers recorded. Hemlock contains conine, a piperidine alkaloid that causes ascending paralysis. It starts in the legs and works upward. Death occurs when the paralysis reaches the respiratory muscles. The mechanism Plato described watching in Socrates in 399 BC matches conine poisoning with clinical accuracy. It's still in your neighborhood. It grows in disturbed soil, along roadsides, in garden borders where it looks like something benign. If you grow or forage any plant in the carrot family, learn to identify hemlock before anything else. The ancient world knew what it was. The warning survived. The look-alike still doesn't come labeled. Number 9. Black nightshade, Solanum nigrum. Here's the kicker with black nightshade. It is edible when fully ripe and cooked in certain traditional preparations. In parts of Africa and Asia, it's been a food plant for centuries. But the unripe berries and the leaves contain solanine and solacinine at levels that have caused documented fatalities in children who ate the attractive small berries off the plant, thinking they were something harmless. Scripture uses nightshade family plants as symbols of desolation multiple times. Isaiah describes abandoned cities overtaken by thorns and bitter herbs, the same plants that represented places where nothing wholesome could flourish. The cultural association was not arbitrary. Communities that grew food knew which plants in that genus signaled that a place had gone wrong. What's confirmed now? Solanine poisoning produces nausea, vomiting, neurological symptoms, and at high doses, respiratory depression and cardiac effects. The margin between the dose in ripe, cooked berries and the dose in raw, unripe fruit is narrower than most people assume. Black nightshade grows as a weed in vegetable gardens. It appears regularly in established beds where it blends in with other seedlings. If you're growing tomatoes, peppers, or eggplant, all members of the same family, you may have it already and not know it. The ripe black berries look edible. That's the problem the ancient world named, and the care card doesn't. Number 8. Colchicum, autumn crocus, Colchicum autumnale. Every part of this plant is toxic. The corm, the leaves, the flowers, the seeds. The active compound, colchicine, inhibits cell division and causes organ failure when ingested at sufficient doses. There is no antidote. Treatment is supportive only. Ancient Greek and Roman physicians knew this. Dioscorides, writing in the 1st century AD, the same period as much of the New Testament's composition, documented autumn crocus as a plant requiring extreme caution and named specific toxic doses. The plant appeared in ancient Near Eastern medical texts as a controlled substance, used in precise, tiny quantities for certain inflammatory conditions, never casually. What makes colchicum particularly dangerous now is that it blooms in autumn without its leaves, and the flowers look strikingly similar to harmless saffron crocus. Actual saffron crocus, Crocus sativus, is entirely safe. Autumn crocus, in the same visual space, in the same season, at the same height, contains a compound the NIH classifies as having a narrow therapeutic window and a high lethality potential in accidental ingestion. The ancient medical tradition that flagged this plant was correct about everything: the dose relationship, the organ targets, the danger of confusion with the safe species. Modern toxicology confirmed all of it within the last 50 years, with biochemical precision the ancient world didn't have, and reached the same conclusions. Number 7. Mandrake, Mandragora officinarum. Mandrake appears in Genesis, chapter 30, one of the most specific botanical references in the entire Torah. Rachel and Leah negotiate over mandrake roots, which were associated with fertility. The plant was valued. It was also, simultaneously, known to be dangerous at anything above very controlled doses. The root contains hyoscine, hyoscyamine, and atropine, all tropane alkaloids. Combined, they produce hallucination, delirium, elevated heart rate, and at toxic doses, coma and death. Ancient physicians used mandrake preparations as surgical anesthesia, a practice documented in multiple Greco-Roman medical texts. Pliny the Elder specified exact dosing cautions in the 1st century AD. Too much, and the patient didn't wake up. The medieval world extended this into folklore so elaborate, screaming roots, fatal uprooting, that the genuine pharmacological danger got buried under legend. But modern toxicology stripped the legend away and confirmed the mechanism. Atropine in particular is now used in controlled medical settings because of its potency. The same compound that made mandrake a surgical tool for ancient physicians makes it acutely dangerous in uncontrolled exposure. If you've seen mandrake sold in any herbal context, and it is sold, understand that the ancient world used this plant with a physician supervising the dose. The Genesis reference wasn't incidental. The people in that story knew exactly what they were trading for. We're halfway through this list, and the next 5 are where it gets harder to look away. The plants coming up are more common, more accessible, and in several cases are being sold right now in health contexts that the ancient warning would have found genuinely alarming. If you're watching this on a device and you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. What's coming includes a plant that appears in the Book of Revelation specifically as a symbol of poisoned waters, and what the compound inside it does to the human nervous system is exactly as serious as that imagery suggests. Stay with us. Number 6. Henbane, Hyoscyamus niger. Ancient Egyptians documented henbane in medical papyri dating to 1500 BC. The Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical documents in existence, lists it as a plant requiring careful handling. Greek physicians used it. Roman physicians used it. And across every culture that documented it, the same caution appears. The margin between therapeutic and lethal is dangerously thin. In the biblical world, henbane seeds were found in excavations of sites mentioned in Scripture. It was part of the landscape. The ancient association between henbane and confusion, madness, and spiritual disturbance appears across multiple traditions, not as superstition, but as observed pharmacology. Henbane contains the same tropane alkaloids as mandrake, hyoscyamine and scopolamine. Both cross the blood-brain barrier rapidly. Here's what modern toxicology confirmed. Scopolamine is now classified as one of the most dangerous incapacitating agents known, used historically in criminal contexts, specifically because its effects are rapid and complete. Henbane growing in the wild, and it does grow wild across Europe and parts of North America, has caused mass poisoning events when its seeds contaminated grain supplies. The ancient world flagged this plant specifically because they had watched what it did. The chemical explanation came later. The conclusion was identical. Number 5. Castor bean, Ricinus communis. The castor plant appears in the book of Jonah, chapter 4. The plant that grew quickly to shade Jonah and then was destroyed, leaving him exposed. The Hebrew word kikayon has been debated, but several botanical scholars have identified Ricinus communis as the most likely candidate based on its growth characteristics in the region and its documented presence in ancient Israel. Whether the identification is exact or not, what's not debatable is what Ricinus communis contains. Ricin, derived from castor beans, is one of the most acutely toxic, naturally occurring substances known to science. 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight is estimated to be lethal in humans. It has been used as a biological weapon. It has no antidote. It causes cell death by halting protein synthesis at the ribosomal level. Castor oil, pressed commercially from the same plant, is entirely safe. The ricin remains in the seed cake, not in the pressed oil. The ancient world used castor oil extensively, including in Egyptian medical and cosmetic preparations. They were working with the safe portion without knowing the molecular distinction. The bean itself, if chewed by a child, can be fatal. The plant is sold as an ornamental. It is legally available in most of the United States. It grows quickly, it is large and visually striking, and it is regularly planted in home gardens by people who have no idea what the seed contains. The ornamental tag does not mention ricin. It never does. Number 4. Wormwood, Artemisia absinthium, Revelation 8:11. A star falls from heaven into the waters. The waters turn bitter. The name of the star is wormwood. People die. That passage was not metaphor to the people who first read it. In the ancient Near East, wormwood was a known bitter plant associated with judgment, suffering, and dangerous consequences. Lamentations uses it as an image of affliction. Proverbs associates it with the bitter aftermath of sin. Deuteronomy uses bitter plants, almost certainly including wormwood, as symbols of spiritual corruption. The name carried weight because the plant's effects carried weight. Modern toxicology confirmed the weight. Wormwood contains thujone, a compound that in sufficient quantities causes seizures, neurological damage, and hallucinations. The 19th century made this quantifiable. Absinthe, with wormwood as its active ingredient, was linked to such widespread neurological damage across Europe that most countries banned it by 1915. The clinical name for the syndrome was absinthism. It was real, documented, and directly attributable to thujone exposure. Wormwood is currently sold as a supplement, a parasite cleanse, a digestive tonic. The Revelation reference is striking enough that some wellness marketers actually use it as a selling point, the biblical name as branding, while omitting the part of Revelation where the water it falls into becomes deadly. The warning was always there. They just stopped reading at verse 10. Number 3. Belladonna, Atropa belladonna. The name Atropa comes from Atropos, one of the three fates in Greek mythology, the one who cut the thread of life. Botanists in the 18th century did not choose that name lightly. They chose it because the plant kills. Ancient Near Eastern and Mediterranean traditions documented belladonna across the same geographical space as much of biblical history. It appears in ancient pharmacopoeia as both a controlled therapeutic and an explicit poison. The Greek and Roman medical tradition that developed alongside the early biblical canon knew belladonna as a plant of precise dose management and lethal consequence at excess. What belladonna contains, atropine, scopolamine, hyoscyamine, produces anticholinergic toxidrome. Heart rate escalates, body temperature rises, pupils dilate fully, hallucinations arrive. The phrase mad as a hatter, blind as a bat, red as a beet, dry as a bone, hot as a hair describes this syndrome specifically. It is still used by toxicologists today to identify anticholinergic poisoning. Every part of the plant is toxic. The berries look like blueberries and taste mildly sweet, which is specifically why children are the most common accidental poisoning victims. 10 to 20 berries is estimated to be a lethal dose for a child. The ancient world placed this plant in the category of things you do not let grow casually near where people eat or children play. That assessment has not been revised downward in 4,000 years. Number 2. Foxglove, Digitalis purpura. Foxglove does not appear by name in Scripture, but here is what's confirmed. The plant has been present in the biblical world's geographic range for thousands of years, and the ancient caution around plants that affect the heart, plants that could slow it, accelerate it, or stop it entirely, appears consistently in the same medical traditions that overlapped with the community's scripture documents. What makes foxglove remarkable from a toxicology standpoint is the precision of its danger. Digitalis glycosides, digoxin and digitoxin, act directly on cardiac muscle. In controlled medical doses, they treat heart failure and arrhythmia. Digoxin is still prescribed today, but the therapeutic window is extraordinarily narrow. A dose 1.5 to 2 times the therapeutic level is toxic. Symptoms of toxicity include seeing yellow-green halos around lights, nausea, and life-threatening arrhythmia. Vincent van Gogh's famous yellow period, the yellow halos, the distorted rings of light in starry night, is now widely attributed by medical historians to digitalis toxicity, potentially from foxglove preparations prescribed for his epilepsy. His doctor, Dr. Paul Gachet, was known to use digitalis. The paintings are documented evidence of a specific toxidrome. Foxglove is still sold as an ornamental garden plant with no warning. It is gorgeous. It grows to 5 or 6 feet, covered in tubular flowers that attract pollinators. The dried leaves blow across garden beds. Children touch them. People plant it near vegetable gardens. The ancient instinct to classify heart-affecting plants as requiring specific caution was correct. The ornamental industry hasn't caught up. Number 1. Aloe, the bitter variety, and the myrrh combination. This one requires precision, and I want to give it the full treatment it deserves. Aloes appears multiple times in Scripture. In John 19:39, Nicodemus brings a mixture of myrrh and aloes, roughly 75 pounds of it, to prepare Jesus' body for burial. In Proverbs, Numbers, and the Song of Solomon, aloes appear as valuable, aromatic, and significant. The plant referenced in these contexts is most likely Aquilaria, a resinous, aromatic tree. But in other contexts, particularly the burial preparation, scholars have pointed to aloe vera or its more potent relative, aloe ferox. Here's what modern toxicology has confirmed about the bitter aloe preparations, specifically anthraquinone-rich aloe latex, derived from just under the skin of the leaf, that is distinct from the gel most people know. Aloe latex contains compounds classified as potential human carcinogens by the National Toxicology Program. A 2-year study found clear evidence of carcinogenic activity in rats given whole-leaf aloe extract. In 2015, the FDA required all over-the-counter laxative products containing aloe laxative to be removed from the market or reformulated because the safety data was insufficient. The compounds in question, aloin primarily, were used in traditional medical contexts as strong purgatives, in specific doses for specific conditions, by practitioners who knew the dose limits. The ancient record used them carefully and for a reason. What's happening now? Aloe juice is sold in grocery stores. Whole leaf aloe supplements are on every health food shelf. The label says aloe. It does not say aloin content. It does not say NTP classification. It does not say removed from OTC laxative market by FDA. It says ancient remedy and natural. And sometimes, with genuine historical accuracy, it mentions scripture. The ancient world was right to use this plant carefully. The wisdom was in the dose and the preparation and the context. Strip all three of those away, bottle it, and sell it next to the checkout, and you've kept the ancient name while discarding everything the ancient practitioners knew about what that name carried with it. The warning was always there. It still is. Most people just aren't reading past the label. I promised you a bonus, and this one's huge. There is a category of plant danger that Scripture identifies that toxicologists have only recently begun to fully map, and it's not about individual plants, it's about combinations. Proverbs 23 describes mixing drinks with bitter herbs in a context of warning about consumption and altered states. Multiple ancient medical texts, including those overlapping with the Greco-Roman world of the New Testament, specifically warn against combining certain plants because the combined effect was known to be more dangerous than either plant alone. Modern pharmacology calls this synergistic toxicity. Two compounds that are individually at subtoxic levels combine to produce a toxic result. This is now documented between black pepper and certain plant alkaloids, between grapefruit compounds and pharmaceutical drugs, and most relevantly here, between several of the plants on this list. Wormwood and alcohol is the documented absinthe combination. Belladonna and henbane together amplify anticholinergic load past what either produces alone. Foxglove compounds interact with plant-based diuretics in ways that increase cardiac glycoside concentration in the blood. The ancient world didn't have the molecular vocabulary, but they had the observed outcomes, and they wrote them down. If you are taking any combination of herbal supplements, not just the ones on this list, look up the interactions before you assume the natural label means the combination is safe. The ancient practitioners who understood these plants never used them in isolation without knowledge of what else was present. That specificity was the medicine. Ignoring it is the risk. I want to know which of these surprised you the most. Leave it in the comments. Was it the foxglove still being sold as an ornamental with no warning? The castor plant in suburban gardens? The wormwood supplement that uses the Revelation reference as marketing? Tell me which one you're going to look at differently now. If someone in your life gardens, if someone you know buys herbal supplements or forages or grows food, share this with them. Not to frighten them, because the ancient world knew these plants well enough to write them down for 4,000 years, and the least we can do is read what they left us. Subscribe if you're not already here. This channel covers the warning half of the botanical record, the part that doesn't make it onto the label or the care card. There is a lot more of it, and the people in this community share it with people who need to know. The warning was always there. Now you have it too.